I told her I was heading out of town to visit my parents. Just a couple of weeks, I said. A change of scenery. Recharge a bit. Nothing unusual, I'd done it before. She didn't argue. In fact, she barely looked up from her phone. That should have been the first sign. Our marriage had become quiet. Not the peaceful kind, the empty kind. We weren't fighting, but we weren't laughing either. We existed in the same space, without really seeing each other. I chalked it up to routine, to stress. Maybe I was lying to myself. Maybe I just didn't want to admit what was already in front of me. She'd been distant for months. Little things. Locked phone, late-night showers, sudden girls' nights that didn't feel quite right. I wanted to believe it was nothing. That's what love does to you. It makes you stupid, hopeful, patient to a fault. But I'm not entirely naive. What she didn't know was that my trip wasn't just about family. I needed space to think, to observe. I had a nagging feeling, a kind of itch you can't scratch, that something was happening right under my nose. And I don't like being made a fool. Before I left, I made sure of a few things. Subtle things. Small moves. She wouldn't have noticed, or so I hoped. I was careful, calm, and most of all, I was quiet. People underestimate what silence can do when used properly. As I closed the suitcase and wheeled it to the door, she gave me a kiss on the cheek, a cold, perfunctory thing, like someone paying a bill. She said, "Have fun," without even looking me in the eye. Yeah, that was sign number 2. I walked out the door with a smile. Not because I was happy, but because I finally had the distance I needed. Distance to see the truth. And maybe, just maybe, do something about it. It started small. A missed call here. A delayed text there. I'd message her mid-morning something casual like, "Hope your day's going well." Hours would pass before I got a one-word reply. Yeah. Or worse. A heart emoji. No punctuation, no warmth. I tried to video call her one evening. She declined. Texted back 5 minutes later. "Can't talk right now. In the bath." It was 8 p.m. She never took baths. Not once in 5 years of marriage had she voluntarily sat still in hot water. She was a shower-and-go person. Efficient, no nonsense. This wasn't just new, it was calculated. The second time I tried, she claimed she was with friends. Girls' night again. Funny how those were happening a lot more lately. And yet, when I asked who she was with, the typing bubble popped up, then disappeared. No answer. I started noticing patterns, a rhythm to the silence. Texts only during certain hours. No photos, no background noise on the rare occasion she did pick up. Just her voice, too cheerful, like she was performing a role. I'd ask, "How's the house?" And she'd always say, "Same as ever," like she couldn't be bothered to pretend anything had changed. But I knew better. See, what she didn't know, what no one knew, was that I wasn't just on vacation. I'd planned this down to the minute. I had my reasons for leaving, and I had even better reasons for watching. Because before I left, I made sure to set a few things up. Quietly, strategically. A hidden camera in the living room. One in the hallway. Audio in the bedroom. Nothing invasive. Just enough to answer a simple question. Was I crazy, or was she lying? And every day away gave me more reason to believe the latter. I wasn't paranoid. I was prepared. She thought I was out of sight, out of mind, that I'd be gone long enough to forget the way things used to feel. But the truth is, I remembered everything. And now, I was beginning to see everything too. It was a Tuesday afternoon when I got the message. Nothing dramatic, just a photo, my house, my driveway, a man I didn't recognize walking up to the front door like he owned the place. My friend Sam, who lives just a few blocks over, had snapped it from his car. Caption read, "You expecting company while you're gone?" No, I wasn't. I stared at the image for a long time. Not because I was shocked, not yet, anyway, but because I was analyzing. Every detail, the way the guy held himself, the key in his hand, the plastic grocery bag swinging casually at his side. Comfortable, routine, like he'd been there before, like he belonged. I texted back, "Nope, never seen him before. Let me know if you see him again." Sam was discreet, always had been. He didn't pry, just said, "Will do," and left it at that. Over the next couple of days, he sent more photos. Different times, different angles, same man. Sometimes he was leaving the house early in the morning, sometimes he was arriving late at night. One picture showed him walking the dog, my dog. The leash in his hand looked like a leash in my hand. I didn't rage. I didn't call her screaming. I didn't say a word. Instead, I saved every image, created a folder, backed it up twice. There's a certain clarity that comes when the worst thing you imagined begins to unfold, and you're not surprised. Disappointed? Yes, but not surprised. At some point, a part of me had already accepted this possibility. What mattered now wasn't emotion, it was proof. I needed to know how deep the lie went, if this man was a fling, a mistake, or something worse. And so, I made another call. The private investigator's name was Harris, mid-50s, ex-military, the kind of guy who wore button-downs like armor and never smiled unless he meant it. I found him through a quiet referral friend of a friend kind of deal. I told him the basics, gave him the address, sent him the photos Sam had taken, explained the odd behavior, the distance, the coldness that had crept into our marriage like mold in the walls. He didn't judge, just nodded, jotted a few things down, and said, "I'll find out what you need to know." That was 3 days ago. On the 4th day, I got an encrypted email from Harris. In it, time-stamped photos, video clips, a full report. It didn't take long to confirm what I already suspected. The man wasn't just visiting. He was living there. His car was parked out front overnight. He came and went using a key. He brought in groceries, picked up takeout, spent afternoons in the backyard with the dog, evenings on the couch watching TV with her. They shared meals, wine, intimacy. There was no subtlety in the way they moved around each other. No caution, no shame. This wasn't a fling. This was a replacement, an audition for my role. The photos didn't lie, neither did the timestamps. Some were taken at times when I'd spoken to her on the phone, when she told me she was out with friends, when she told me she missed me. It was strange the moment I saw it all laid out so clearly. I didn't explode. I didn't cry. My hands didn't shake. What I felt wasn't fury. It was focus. Because now I had something more powerful than suspicion. Now, I had leverage. This didn't start the day I left the house. The cracks had been showing long before that. Glances that lasted too long at her phone. Locked screens. Sudden bursts of laughter at texts she wouldn't share. The dead weight in her voice when she said, "I love you," like it was part of a routine she no longer believed in. I don't believe in jumping to conclusions, but I do believe in preparation. About 3 months before the trip, I started planning. Not because I had proof, but because I had instinct. That quiet little alarm in the back of your head that never shouts, just rings. And it was ringing nonstop. I did the research, learned about discreet surveillance tech, took my time, ordered what I needed under a different name, delivered to a P.O. box. Everything untraceable, everything legal. I wasn't interested in drama, I wanted clarity. By the time I left for my so-called family visit, the house was rigged. A camera in the living room clock. One behind a vent in the hallway. Another in the corner of the kitchen. All motion triggered. All streaming directly to a secure cloud account. I even set up small microphones, nothing too invasive, just enough to catch conversation and movement. She didn't notice a thing. She'd stopped paying attention to me months ago. Why would she start now? I tested the system for a week before leaving. Flawless. Clean angles. Crisp sound. Hidden well enough that even a paranoid person wouldn't catch it. And she wasn't paranoid, she was distracted. Overconfident. Careless. So when I rolled my suitcase out the door, I didn't just walk away from a sinking marriage. I walked toward the truth, fully prepared to face it. And what I found confirmed everything I feared and more. The first few nights, I watched like someone scanning for ghosts. A flicker of movement here, a shadow there. Nothing concrete, just small things. The way she smiled at her phone, the way she lingered by the mirror a little longer before bed. Subtle, but growing. Then he showed up. The man from Sam's photos. Same face, same walk, same casual swagger, like he knew the place because he did. I watched him come through my front door with a bag of takeout, her favorite wine in hand. She met him with a kiss, a long one, familiar, practiced. No hesitation, no secrecy. Over the next few nights, he made himself comfortable. Shoes off on the rug I bought, sitting in my chair, using my mugs, sleeping in our bed. I didn't need imagination anymore. The cameras gave me the unedited truth. They cooked dinner together, watched movies, talked about me. I listened as she laughed about how clueless I was, how easy it was to manage things with me gone, how nice it was to finally have the house to themselves. I kept the audio, all of it. Some nights, I'd stare at the screen for hours, unmoving. Not because I couldn't look away, but because I wanted every second logged into memory. Their routines, their habits, their arrogance. And yet, I stayed silent. No calls, no accusations, not even a cryptic text to shake her up. Because silence, in the right hands, is a weapon. And I wasn't done watching. I came home 2 days early. No warning, no text, no heads-up call from the road. Just me, a duffel bag, and a key that still turned the lock. It was late afternoon, quiet, the kind of stillness that feels unnatural in a house that's supposed to be lived in. I stepped inside and was hit by the familiar scent of our home, except it wasn't ours anymore. Something was off. New cologne in the air. A pair of shoes by the door that didn't belong to me. I walked in like I hadn't seen the recordings, like I hadn't spent the last week watching her and him build a little fantasy life inside my walls. I played dumb, set my bag down, took off my coat, called out her name like I always used to. She came downstairs, wide-eyed and pale, like she'd seen a ghost. He was behind her, frozen, silent, trying to decide whether to run or speak. "Hey," I said, smiling like I didn't already know his face better than my own. "Didn't think I'd be back so early, huh?" She stammered. Something about missing me. Something about surprise. I told her I'd had enough family bonding and needed to sleep in my own bed again. Then I turned to him. "Friend of yours?" He looked at her. She looked at me. "Oh yeah, this is Tyler," she said. "He's just helping with some stuff around the house." "Right." I nodded. "Nice to meet you, Tyler." Then I walked past them, set my bag in the bedroom, and closed the door behind me. I didn't ask questions. I didn't show anger. I didn't confront anyone. That's what they were expecting. Instead, I let the silence hang in the air like smoke. Let them wonder what I knew, and how much. Let them stew in their own anxiety. Because they thought they were still in control. But I had already flipped the game board. The next morning, she was all smiles and coffee. "You really surprised me," she said, handing me a mug like nothing had changed. "I wasn't expecting you back until Friday." I nodded. "Yeah, plans changed. Figured I'd come home early." She sat across from me at the kitchen table, acting like everything was fine. Like the man who had been living in my house for the past week wasn't upstairs in the shower 10 hours earlier. I watched her closely. Not her words, her timing, her tone, the way her hands fidgeted with the sleeve of her hoodie when I asked simple questions. "So, Tyler's a handyman?" I asked casually. She blinked. "Oh, not exactly. He's a friend from work. His apartment's getting fumigated, just for a few days." "Got it," I said, sipping coffee. "Must be awkward for him. Sleeping on the couch, I assume?" Pause. "Yeah, of course. Of course." She kept the lies coming like she was dealing cards. Confident, quick, believable if you weren't already holding the whole deck. I nodded, smiling at all the right times. Played the part of the distracted husband who didn't care enough to dig deeper. Meanwhile, every word she said was another crack in her story. Another breadcrumb I collected for later. I watched her spin this version of reality, one where she was doing me a favor by offering a coworker a place to stay, one where nothing inappropriate had happened, one where I was the lucky, understanding husband. And I let her, because every lie she told now only made what came next that much easier. Every contradiction, every time she misspoke, every time she forgot what she said the day before. I wasn't angry, not anymore. I was documenting. And when the time came to finally speak, really speak, I'd have more than just suspicion. I'd have every single word she twisted into a noose. And I'd let her hang herself with it. He started leaving his toothbrush in the bathroom, not tucked away in a drawer out in the open, next to mine, like a trophy, like a quiet little declaration, "I'm not going anywhere." The first few days after I got back, he kept his distance, avoided eye contact, took long walks around the block while I was home. But it didn't last. Cowards get bold when they think the danger has passed. By the end of the week, he was lounging on my couch in my sweatpants, the ones she used to steal when it was cold. He helped himself to my liquor, left dishes in the sink, laughed a little too loudly at jokes that weren't funny, like he was trying to reclaim some power he never had. I'd walk into a room and find him already there, watching TV like he'd paid the mortgage. He'd look up, smile that smug little smile, and say things like, "Hey man, want a beer?" Every time he opened his mouth, he confirmed what I already knew. He thought I was weak, clueless, that I didn't know what was happening right in front of me, that I was the fool in the room. I let him believe it. I smiled back. I nodded. I made polite conversation, even offered him a drink once. Because nothing makes a man more careless than thinking he's safe. And nothing rattles a guilty mind more than a man who says nothing at all. I wasn't angry, not visibly, not anymore. Anger would have tipped my hand. I wanted him comfortable. I wanted him predictable. I wanted him confident. Because confidence makes people sloppy. And I needed him sloppy. While they played house, I played chess. Every morning before they woke up, I was already at my laptop, backing up footage, labeling files, creating a timeline that could be followed by a lawyer, a judge, or anyone who needed to understand just how deep the betrayal went. I wasn't just gathering evidence, I was building a case. One night, while she slept beside me like nothing was wrong, I copied every financial document we shared onto an encrypted drive. Bank statements, mortgage papers, credit card records, anything that could be twisted later, I made sure was protected now. I made an appointment with a divorce attorney the next day. Discreet firm, high success rate. No free consultations, they only worked with clients who meant business. I came in with a binder and left with a strategy. Don't confront her yet, the lawyer advised. Keep things quiet until the paperwork's ready. You've already done the hard part, now we make it count. So I waited. And while I waited, I smiled. I acted like nothing had changed. I let her think she was getting away with it. Every time she lied to my face, I noted the date and time. Every time he left a shirt on the back of the chair, I snapped a photo. Every careless detail was another thread I wove into the trap. And slowly, I started to detach. Emotionally, mentally. I stopped looking at her like a partner. Stopped reacting to him like a threat. They were just data points now. Fuel for the final move. The calm before the execution. Because revenge, like justice, doesn't need to be loud. It just needs to be complete. I invited them both to dinner. Nothing fancy, just a quiet night at home. Thought we could all catch up, I said casually. Like it was just another evening. Like I wasn't about to flip their world inside out. She hesitated for a second, but then smiled. Yeah, that sounds nice. He just nodded, smug and oblivious, as always. I made pasta, opened a bottle of red, her favorite, set the table neatly, with 3 plates, 3 forks, 3 wine glasses. No confrontation, no theatrics. Just 3 adults sitting down like nothing was out of place. But everything was. We ate in near silence for the first few minutes. He tried to make small talk, said something about a show they were watching. She laughed a little too hard. I just listened, chewing slowly, watching their eyes, their hands, the tension in their shoulders. Then I started dropping hints. Subtle ones. Oh, by the way, I said, twirling pasta on my fork. Did you ever figure out how to reset the living room clock? Thought I saw someone fiddling with it while I was gone. She froze for half a second, just long enough to notice. He glanced at her, confused. I smiled. Also, I continued, the hallway vent makes a weird noise now, almost like it was bumped or something. Another pause. She reached for her wine glass too quickly, took a sip, swallowed hard. I let the silence breathe, let the weight of those innocent sentences settle between us. By the time we cleared the plates, her hands were shaking slightly. She knew. Maybe not everything, but enough to start panicking. And that's exactly where I wanted her. After dessert, I brought out my laptop. They were both seated on the couch, trying to act normal. I sat across from them, opened the screen, and hit play. No introduction, no warning. Just a quiet clip of my living room. Time-stamped. She was on the couch, wrapped in a blanket, curled up next to him. They were laughing, holding hands. Then she leaned in and kissed him. I didn't speak. Next clip, him walking out of the shower in a towel, her handing him clothes from my dresser. My clothes. Then, the audio. Her voice. He has no idea. I've got everything under control. I paused the video. Looked up. She was pale. Eyes wide. Lips parted, but no words came out. He looked like he wanted to vanish. I leaned back. I've known for weeks, I said quietly. Every word, every lie, every night you thought you were safe. Still, they said nothing. I have copies, I continued. Recordings, photos, statements. This isn't a confrontation. It's a courtesy. She finally spoke. You, how long have you? Long enough. She looked at him as if he might have an answer. He just shook his head. Silent. Humiliated. I stood up, closed the laptop, and walked to the door. You have until tomorrow to get out, I said. Both of you. No shouting, no drama. Just cold, final truth. Because sometimes, the loudest thing you can say is nothing at all. The next morning, she cried. Real tears. Snot and shaking and that breathless kind of pleading people do when they realize the consequences aren't theoretical anymore. She followed me around the kitchen, asking for another chance, trying to explain the unexplainable. I made a mistake, she kept saying. I wasn't thinking clearly. We weren't in a good place. I didn't respond. I didn't argue. I just poured my coffee and waited for her to run out of words. Eventually, she did. Then it was his turn. He stood in the doorway like a kicked dog. Couldn't meet my eyes. Didn't try to defend himself. Didn't say a word to her either. Whatever alliance they had, it collapsed the moment the lights came on. I don't want anything from you, he mumbled. That's good, I said, because you're not getting anything. I set 2 envelopes on the table. One was hers. Inside, copies of the divorce papers. Filed. Finalized. The other was his. A printed list of everything he'd left around the house. Clothes. Phone charger. A watch. Your stuff is in the garage, I told him. Get it and leave. Today. She broke down again, tried to reach for my hand. I stepped back. The house is in my name, I said calmly. Always has been. I already spoke to the lawyer. You'll be served officially within the week. But where am I supposed to go? She asked, her voice cracking. That's not my problem anymore. And it wasn't, not legally, not emotionally. They thought this was a warning. They didn't realize it was already a conclusion. The silence after they left was the loudest thing I'd ever heard. For a few days, the house felt like a crime scene. Familiar, but hollow. Everything looked the same, but nothing was the same. It was like I had to learn how to breathe again without the weight of deception pressing down on my chest. Word got around fast. Some friends were stunned. Others weren't. People took sides, of course. Some of her friends tried to spin it, said I must have been cold, inattentive, distant. But those who mattered knew the truth. Knew what I'd endured, how long I'd kept quiet, how carefully I'd planned my exit. I didn't argue with anyone, didn't give interviews, just moved on. She moved in with her sister for a while, from what I heard. Then eventually found a job 2 towns over. We don't talk. Haven't since the papers were signed. She emailed once some half-hearted apology with too many words and no real meaning. I didn't respond. As for him, he disappeared. Last I heard, he got fired from his job. Word travels, especially when you cheat with a married woman and get caught living in her husband's house. I'd be lying if I said I didn't feel satisfaction. But mostly, I just felt peace. There's something powerful about reclaiming your story, about refusing to be the victim, even when everyone assumes you are. I didn't explode. I didn't scream. I simply knew and acted. And in the end, that quiet, patient clarity was more destructive than any rage ever could be. Healing didn't happen all at once. It wasn't some dramatic breakthrough or a sunrise epiphany. It was quiet, uneventful. The kind of peace that creeps in slowly when the noise finally dies down. At first, I didn't even recognize it. Just noticed that I was sleeping better, eating without a knot in my stomach. Laughing again, real laughter, the kind that doesn't feel like a lie. The house felt different, not empty, just clear, like it had been exorcised. Her perfume was gone. So were the subtle traces of him, the jacket slung over a chair, the second toothbrush. Every room belonged to me again. I changed a few things. New furniture, repainted the bedroom, bought plants, even though I'm terrible at keeping them alive. It wasn't about redecorating, it was about reclaiming. Every small change was a step forward. And somewhere along the way, I met someone. I wasn't looking, wasn't ready, if I'm being honest. But she was patient. She didn't try to fill a void, she just stood beside it with me. And over time, the void didn't feel so wide. We take things slow. I'm not in a rush. When you've been burned, you learn to appreciate the warmth without needing the fire. Looking back, people still ask me how I kept my cool. How I didn't snap. How I planned it all without losing control. Simple. Because I'd already lost the person I trusted most, what else was there to fear? Some people think revenge is about rage, about making someone hurt as badly as they hurt you. But that's not what this was. This was about truth, about refusing to be blindfolded while someone rewrote my reality, about knowing when to be silent and when to strike. I didn't burn bridges. I rebuilt myself on the ashes. And if there's one thing I've learned, it's this. Don't play games with someone who already knows the rules. Because by the time you realize it's a setup, it's already checkmate. This story was intense, but this story on the right-hand side is even more insane